Hello, I'm Robert, and a fact checker and science blogger. And this is to help people who are scared that that the RNA vaccines are going to modify your RNA and DNA. So what these vaccines actually make are just a spike of the virus. It's a lump of protein basically. This is it. And it's just one of the spikes of the entire virus. This can't replicate itself. The spike can't do anything. And the way they make those spikes, so some vaccines, they just actually consist of those spikes and they inject them into people and nothing else. And some vaccines stick this spike to another virus, such as a cold virus or a chimpanzee cold virus. And the idea there is that you get a virus completely harmless and it can't replicate in a human being, and then it's inactivated, and then you add the spike of COVID-19 to this virus, and so those are ways of doing it. Messenger RNA is a very clever, different way of doing it, and it doesn't do anything to the RNA in your body. It doesn't do anything to the DNA in the body. So, in order to understand it properly, you need to understand a little bit about what messenger RNA is. So, that's the wrong one, sorry. Let's bring up the messenger RNA video. So, messenger RNA, this symbolizes very schematic the RNA, which is like a strip of genetic instructions. And this is like what the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine produces. And then these strands, they make proteins. And so the DNA gets turned into messenger RNA. Let's get that out of the way. And so this is the ribosome, which reads the messenger RNA and turns that into, this is a protein that's emerging, and this little translation translates three bases at a time into proteins. So now, normally, the messenger RNA, so I hummed a little rather quickly. I go back a bit. So, yeah, here we go. So there's the messenger RNA. So normally, you have DNA inside the cells. You have the enzymes that translate that into messenger RNA, and then that sends the messenger RNA to those ribosomes, which then starts making whatever it is your cell needs, lots of different things. So what the Moderna and Pfizer are, they are messenger RNA, which was made in a laboratory outside of your body, and they just insert the messenger RNA. It doesn't do anything to DNA because it's coming from outside. They're like recipes, like instructions, and the only thing in the body, in the cell, that can read them are these ribosome things that turn them into proteins. So all you can do is to make proteins. You can't make more RNA or DNA. And so there you see them going in, and they go into the cells, and the cells make lots and lots of these spikes. And those aren't the virus, those are just spikes. Just a spike on its own. It's difficult. The reason they don't just inject the spikes is because the spikes, they deteriorate quite easily. It was quite clever the way they managed to package the RNA in such a way that the messenger RNA can get into the cells, and then it starts producing lots and lots of spikes. And then during this process, the messenger RNA eventually deteriorates when it's gone, and the spikes, then the immune system attacks the spikes. And so the immune system then learns to fight off the spikes. Even though the spikes are completely harmless, they can't do anything once they've been expelled from it's the messenger RNA that made the spikes, not other spikes. And they're just lumps of protein, they can't make anything. And so it's a very clean virus, because at the end of all that, the spikes are all mopped up by the immune system, which learns how to mop up the spikes. So it trains the immune system to recognize the spike and get rid of it. And then the spikes are all gone because the immune system has mopped them up. the messenger RNA is all gone, and all that is left is a memory of how to fight the spikes. And so, yes, it creates the recipe for proteins to help the virus to infect cells, but those proteins themselves can't, and then it's going in, they'll start making spikes again. See all the spikes coming out? It's basically giving them a recipe, and then they trigger the immune cells, and then immune cells are ready to, and those are the antibodies that the immune cells are creating, which go and then trap all the spikes. And so, and then those antibodies will recognize the spikes on the virus itself. So that is basically how this works. And then the whole idea is, so the thing is that when the virus first I'll bring my video feed again. So when the virus first infects your body, then your innate immune system will attack back right away. But it's very broad spectrum, and it really can't see the individual viruses basically. So it just does a broad spectrum attack. If you've only got a few viruses, it can fight it off before it can infect you. But if the virus overwhelms that, it's a kind of race between the virus to infect as much of your body as possible, and your body to try and recognize what's happening to it. And it takes your body several days before it even begins to start learning what it is that's attacking it. Basically, it's blind for the first few days. And so it's during that time that you're in a natural infection that your body learns how to fight off the virus. And by the time it's learned how to stop it, there's lots of virus in your body. And so it's a question of how much virus is in your body by the time your body is fighting back. And then how well does that balance work? And basically, depending on how that happens, sometimes your body fights back too much, and the illness comes from your body fighting back rather than from the virus. And it's the balance of all that decides whether you're going to have a bad bout of COVID-19 or even die of it, or whether it's going to be so bad you don't even notice it. So the idea of the vaccine is to challenge you really early on, before you've even seen the virus, the natural virus, just for the spikes in this case. You will get some kind of reaction to it. Your body is going to develop the natural immune reaction before it's learned what to do. Because even with this, your body's going to take several days to learn how to fight against it. It's the same as with the virus. So the first thing that happens, just with the natural virus, you've got to be infected with this, creating lots and lots of these in your muscle, or wherever it is. Where do they inject it? I can't remember where they inject it. Anyway, wherever they inject it, then those cells there start producing lots and lots of these spikes. And then your body will fight back, and that's why you get a kind of reddened effect where they injected it, because that's your body fighting back. It doesn't know what it is, but it knows there's something not quite right there, and so you get an inflammation reaction, and quite a lot of people. And really, that can't be avoided. Many viruses, many vaccines will do that. Not in everyone, but some people, then you'll get reactions like that. But then that's soon over. That's just the very first reaction. And then your body will start learning how to create the antibodies, which then kind of stick onto the spikes and disable them from doing anything. Now, these are harmless spikes, not doing anything anyway, but your body doesn't know that, and so it gradually learns to fight it off. But once it's done that, then the spikes are all gone. They've all been captured. And then, but your body now knows how to fight the natural virus. So when you get the natural virus comes in, instead of it being able to build up in your body up and up and up for several days or a week or something before your body's really doing much to fight it, your body immediately knows what to do. And if it's a really good, strong reaction, it can fight it off before it's got anywhere. And so you just wouldn't get, in the best case, you just don't get infected at all. And this lady who invented this whole idea, the idea of packaging the messenger RNA, and there's a modern patent for modified nucleosides. This is for making the vaccine. So they don't modify the messenger RNA. This is to do with the messenger RNA in the vaccine has to be designed in a special way so as to cause a much less of an immune response. Because the messenger RNA, you don't want an immune response to messenger RNA. You just want an immune response to the spikes. So messenger RNA, if you change one of the nuclear bases, then the messenger RNA can get into your body without triggering an immune reaction, and it's just the spikes that trigger the reaction. And so if you can do that, then they found that was her discovery, basically this latest discovery. She discovered that if you change one of the nucleosides, which are the basic instructions in the RNA, so the individual instructions, you can have something that it has the same effect. It goes through the ribosome, the translation machine, turns into the same proteins, but it's not a natural nucleoside. And so by doing that, a modified nucleoside, then you don't get the immune reaction, but it still makes the same spikes once it gets into the cells. So that's what that's about. And it's not modifying the RNA in your cells, and it's not modifying the DNA. It's not doing anything. It's not rewriting it. And then there's another thing I want to explain. So there's a great deal of safety data, and these type vaccines are very, very safe. There's another thing I want to explain. Where is it in this page? Let me just find it. There's a big diagram here. Right. Now this is a very interesting thing about, so COVID-19 is an RNA virus. An RNA virus is very clever because actually the cells in your body, they can't even replicate RNA. So when the messenger RNA comes into the cells, there's nothing there that is able to reproduce RNA. It can reproduce DNA, it can't reproduce RNA. So there's actually nothing there that could reproduce the messenger RNA. And once it's all gone, it's gone. There's no way of recreating it. So your body can't keep on making these spikes. And what the SARS-CoV-2 virus does, which is very, very, very clever, and it's become how on earth it evolved, it actually makes an RNA replication factory. It comes into your body and it starts to construct, the first thing it does is to construct a factory to replicate itself. It actually makes a replication factory. And then once it's made the factory, then use that factory to make copies of itself, which then eventually go out. It's very, very, very complicated. Now, these spikes, they don't have any RNA, so it's using its own RNA and other bits of itself to make this replication factory, which then replicates the RNA. Now, the spike doesn't have any. The messenger RNA makes the spikes. So messenger RNA, when it comes in, it doesn't make a factory. All it makes is protein. It can't make anything else. It doesn't make a replication factory. And then once the spikes go off, the spikes are just protein. And the spikes can't make anything. They haven't got any instructions in them. So there's no way for the messenger RNA to reproduce itself, because your body doesn't have a natural messenger RNA factory, replicating factory. You need the virus to do that. And then the spikes, they don't even have any messenger RNA, they don't have any RNA in them either. So there's nothing in the spikes that even could be replicated. It's not replicable, it's just a protein, which eventually will get destroyed. So the whole idea that it could do anything to your body, it can't even replicate in your body, this RNA. All it can do is to make these protein spikes. And so it gets into the cells and it keeps making the protein spikes until eventually it wears out, and that's the end of it. It can't do anything else. So I hope that's a little bit clearer. And these vaccines are very, very safe. They seem to be, so far. Now, if there was any safety concerns, so as it spreads out, so they vaccinate more and more people, then you get these rare 1 in a million people. So those would be like if there are allergic reactions. And so, in particular, probably people who are immunocompromised. If you're severely immunocompromised, then you can't have the vaccine. So they actually have the Pfizer vaccine is not currently there are certain kind of things. Now it's not the messenger RNA, it's not going to cause any problem. It's not the spikes. It's other ingredients of the vaccine. And so there's some people are allergic even to being injected with water, and some people are allergic to be injected with but there's a whole list of ingredients, things that people are not usually allergic to. But if you have people who are very easily allergic, then they again are people you've got to be very careful with. So, I'm not quite sure what the latest is on the Pfizer, but they've certainly got a thing about allergic reactions, and I'm not quite sure what they are on immunocompromised. What it is on immunocompromised. Sorry, I'll mix up two things there. Let's see if I can find anything. Pfizer. I would have to check that up. Can you get the? Here we are. Yeah, some immunocompromised people may not get COVID-19. Yes, it's not included. Yes, they're immunocompromised. So if they got that right, let's just double check that. So I think it's both of those, allergic people and immunocompromised. Let's just accept and continue. This is a reasonably reliable site. Yes, people, but yeah, so if you've got a compromised immune systems, could still benefit from the herd immunity, because you would be surrounded by people who don't are less likely to be infected and pass it on. And so that's good people with HIV and organ transplants, bone marrow recipients, and people taking corticosteroids. So you have to take special care not to be exposed with physical distancing and wearing cloth masks and so on. And they won't be approved initially for use in people who are immunocompromised, and they will eventually either use direct vaccination or protecting others around them. So that's something, that's the reason is that the initial vaccine trials have been done in the general population. That includes healthy younger adults as well as older adults and people with diabetes and heart diseases. But they have excluded children, pregnant women, and immunocompromised. So then, and that's really quite normal. And so it'd be approved for the general population first, then they will find out. But the people aged 65 and over, that's very important. So they have been tested for those. Children, it's less important because the initial focus is on stopping the deaths in the most severe cases, and that's mainly in the older people. So that's the situation, that if you are immunocompromised, and if you're allergic to the point you need an EpiPen, so I'd have to do a couple on the side to get the details of that, but if you need an EpiPen and you're allergic, severely allergic to anything, then again, I think that's one of the exceptions for the Pfizer vaccine. And also, if you're pregnant women, that it is not because they found any problems with the pregnant women, they haven't tested it on them or on the immunocompromised, and this is quite normal. But a few women did become pregnant during the trials, and there were no problems. And generally, the COVID-19 doesn't seem to interfere with pregnancy, and the immune response to COVID-19, the natural disease, would be similar to the immune response to these vaccines. And so it seems likely that it'll be okay for pregnant women, but they just haven't got to that stage in the certification of it. We are at the moment, we are at emergency use authorization. It's not full authorization, and it's phase 4 that we're at, where they roll it out to lots of people, and then once they've done, but not to the whole population, and then they've got to monitor every case that they vaccinate. So if you get vaccinated, they'll be wanting to you to let them know a bit later how it went, and they of course monitor you immediately after you've been vaccinated in case of any immediate reactions, and then they'll be keeping in touch and following up what happens after that. And so if there are any 1 in a million type things, once they've got millions of people, then start turning up 1 in a million type reactions. And so this is still phase 4, where it's still basically, although it's been kind of a bit spun as if it was different, it's basically a large-scale clinical trial still. It's phase 4. And then that continues also once you've completed the full authorization, which probably won't happen. They need 6 months data from the middle of phase 3 before they can complete the full authorization with the CDC rules. So that won't be until late spring. So most of you won't get it until late spring. And I certainly, as soon as it's available in my area and it's got down to my group, which is age 65 upwards, then I will be one of the first, as soon as it's my turn, I'll get it. And I'm totally confident that they are following all the normal safety protocols, same as for any vaccine. The safety has not been speeded up. All that's been speeded up has been all the other stages. They've risked finance, billions of dollars. They risked losing billions of dollars if these vaccines were not approved, and they could have been not approved. They weren't kind of speed line to be approved. If they weren't approved, they would have literally had to throw away $1 billion worth of vaccines that they'd already made. So that's the and all. I'm not sure if it's $1 billion worth of vaccines, but a huge amount of money for the vaccines and all the cost of doing the phase 3 trials and everything. All that, would be $1 billion, and that just thrown down the drain basically. And but they had quite a lot of confidence from early vaccines. So right from the beginning, actually, there was quite a lot of confidence that they would work, because they decided how to do a vaccine using experience with SARS, and those vaccines were very close to being approved. Not gone through all the trials and everything, but it just showed that it was a basic idea, and then the data with animals and so on. So it's not so surprising that it was so successful so quickly. They had 10 years understanding with looking at SARS and MERS. The AstraZeneca one is a MERS vaccine originally, which they just changed the spike to make it into a COVID vaccine. And that's why they could make it so quickly. It's a very, very quick change, because it was all, and there were several vaccines like that, and just had SARS or MERS spikes on them. And within a couple of days of getting a new gene sequence, they made a new vaccine. But then they had to go through all the testing, and lots of things done simultaneously, which would normally have been done one after the other. Same length, same care, but for instance, they were starting phase 3 while they still hadn't published results, just got preliminary results from phase 1. And you wouldn't do it anything like as fast as that. And then as well, the very high infection rate in the United States especially. If you look at the data for the, I think it was the Moderna one I was looking at, was it the Pfizer one, I forget. Nearly all the cases in that, it was across multiple countries, but nearly all of them were in the United States. And in a way, it was Trump can actually take some credit. I mean, not you really want to take that credit, but the way that he was encouraging people to not wear masks and to not physically distance caused such a surge in cases, and that really accelerated the vaccine trials. And that's why they nearly completed by the election day, and it was just a week or so after. Indeed, the first results probably would have come by election day in the United States, but they had to go through proper study of them, and that took at least another week. By the time they produced it, by the time they'd gone through the actual studying of the results, then it was well beyond the election. So it's really quite tight. You know, if the surge had happened a week earlier, then they would have completed and they would have published the results by election day. So it's one of these alternative histories. Suppose that Trump had just encouraged a little bit more not wearing masks and physical distancing a week earlier in the summer, and it had surged up a week earlier by election day, then he might have got the results in time. But that's really why it was so fast that they developed, because there was so many cases, and they were running at 60 a week by election day. 60 or something like that, 60 cases a week of that order by election day, and the aim was to get to 150. So you can see it wouldn't take very long to reach 150 if you're getting 60 infections a week in your population. And so that would normally take like years. So that's partly why it could be so fast, and also because they had very big trials across multiple countries, tens of thousands of people. So all these things brought together is why they could develop the vaccine so fast. But the safety is not in any way compromised, and so you can take these vaccines with as much confidence as any vaccine. And although this is a novel technique with messenger RNA, the method is very well understood how the actual biochemistry is going on in your cells, and it is extremely safe in the way it's a very, very clean vaccine. And the only real question is, well, allergies to compounds in the vaccine, and then there's the thing is, which is really for all the COVID-19 vaccines, they target the spike, and the question is, if you're triggering an immune reaction to the spike, will those antibodies interfere with anything else in the human body? So that's the kind of autoimmune reaction thing that you hear people talk about. And the answer seems to be no. So they will be keeping a very close eye on that. But it doesn't seem to be. And they're both looking at the actual effect of what's going on with the vaccines, and also theoretically looking, and they compare what the spike looks like to your body, and all the other things in your body that might look a little bit like the spike. And they're just not finding the matches that suggest there would be a problem. So they seem to have chosen a pretty good bit of the virus that's going to help it to fight off the virus, but it's not going to do anything to try and attack anything in your own body. And so that is indeed something they will be looking very carefully at, and they will have another 4 months of data, and then, but we've had thousands of people, tens of thousands of people vaccinated, and we haven't had any severe responses at all. So it's roughly equivalent to the flu vaccine. And as with flu, once you get to millions of cases, you might get, for instance, severe allergic reactions in some people. That hasn't happened yet. So if that does happen, then they will notice it, they'll mark it down, it's phase 4. So if you get a news story saying there have been severe allergic reactions to Moderna or Pfizer, then that's totally expected. It happens with flu. It hasn't happened yet, but they haven't had the numbers yet to get to the point where some of those very rare things would turn up. So that's basically it, and they're advising not to give it to people who have known allergic reactions, and there have been some kind of moderate but allergic reactions with people who were given it sort of, they were allergic and but I think it's sort of, I might even be a mistake, I'm not sure, but they, so there were a couple of health workers in the United Kingdom who got an allergic response to the Pfizer vaccine. But it wasn't a very severe one, it soon cleared up in a day or two. And then after that they gave these, but I think it was already in the guidelines, I'm not quite sure how it actually happened, but the United Kingdom, they said, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. They certainly had something about being careful about people with allergic as well as immunocompromised. Yes, the guidelines actually gave a whole list of things. The Pfizer guidelines gave a whole list of all the active ingredients that people could be allergic to. And you're not supposed to give anyone with those reactions. So I'm not quite sure how it happened, but it's very difficult to know if, is someone allergic to some particular thing in the vaccine that haven't actually been tested. So that's why anyone who has these allergic reactions to anything, then they might possibly have an allergic reaction to something in the vaccine, and so they're just being excluded. So anyway, that's this. I hope this helps a bit, and hopes to help you to realise these are very safe vaccines. And absolutely take your time and make your decisions, and wait until it's certainly, if you're not in a high risk group, basically it's a risk-benefit analysis. If you are in a high risk group and there's a significant risk of getting it, you don't want this virus, you don't want this disease. There's the risk of dying. If you're young, there's the risk, 1 in 10 risk maybe, of feeling really sick for months. Most people are lucky and they don't get sick like that, but 1 in 10, you don't want to take, that's quite a high risk of being too tired to go down to the shop very easily. You just feel very tired just going down to the corner shop, and having a kind of, you forget how to spell things, you forget people's names, you find it difficult to read anything unless it's very simple. That's the kind of mind fog. About a tenth get reactions like that, and not just, you get that with flu and cold, but so some people for 2-3 days. This goes on for months, and they don't know how long it's going to continue for. And because the people who still have it, who still have these symptoms 9 months later, who got it back in very early on. So they don't know. It's not even been proven that it won't be lifelong for some of these people. Although they do seem to be recovering, sometimes with setbacks, but most are recovering gradually over time. There's a small fraction who get the very long symptoms. You really, really don't want this. And so, that's another reason to be really quite keen on the vaccine. If you have a significant risk of getting COVID-19, then so to start with, it's people at high risk, and a risk-benefit analysis. It's still the early stages. It seems to be a very, very safe vaccine, but it's being given at the moment to people at very high risk, and also quite a high risk, like health workers, like the very elderly. And then gradually, once they get to the millions of people, and once they've got the 4 months of extra data, then it becomes the entire population gets it. And most likely it's going to be suitable for everyone, because it's certainly looking very safe. But you could have a situation where they decide by then, well, this has to go to just high risk people, but that doesn't seem likely. That where it's going so far, it does look very good. But we can't say, they can't say until they've done the full authorization it won't be fully authorized. That's just the way it is. But at the moment it's emergency use, and 4 months from now it should be fully authorized for everyone if it passes all the trials through then. At the moment it's certainly looking as if it will pass through all the stages and be fully authorized. And then that's when you get your tens of millions and hundreds of millions and then eventually billions getting these vaccines. And then because of the wonderful the COVAX accelerator that's going to be distributed to everyone throughout the world, is going to get at least 3% initially, and this we've actually pre-ordered, because so many vaccines are just working, then it's looking very likely that because the more developed countries, they've over-ordered, and they've pre-ordered something like 10 billion doses for 5 billion people. And so they could actually, for instance, Canada has pre-ordered 9 times its entire population's worth of vaccine. And most of the developed countries have pre-ordered several times their own population, because they were ordering different vaccines from different manufacturers in case only one of those was kind of hedging their bets. But it looks like they're all going to be approved eventually. So if that does happen, then we'll have the capacity to build 5 billion vaccines, and the more still coming along, and each one adds a bit more capacity, then it could well be that we have enough doses for the entire world next year, or a large part of it. And so it does look very promising that that we're going to be able to vaccinate the entire world next year, or the year after, to finish in 2021, 2022 probably. And you can't stop this virus, without a vaccine at all, unlike flu. And that's what New Zealand has done. They've stopped it without a vaccine. And a fifth of the world population is back to normal. No physical distancing, no need to wear masks. Everything's just normal because they got rid of the vaccine. Taiwan was the fastest to respond. Their vice president is an immunologist, an epidemiologist or something like that. And so not surprisingly had a very good response, as well as being close to China, which is an advantage because they have the experience of SARS, and they're also very familiar with what is happening in China. So they immediately implemented very, very good public health, and they stopped it without a vaccine straight away in Taiwan, and they never had a lockdown. And the same for most of China, never had a lockdown. Wuhan did, Hubei province did, most of China didn't. You can stop this without a vaccine. And if you do proper physical distancing, you can protect yourself. And if you have philosophical or religious or just general reasons, almost like a faith in, or like a belief system that no matter what anyone says, you're not going to have a vaccine. If you're in that situation still, you can still protect yourself with physical distancing and hand hygiene and mask wearing, and then you're still going to be protected from it. Indeed, if you do that very thoroughly, then you're protected better than a vaccine probably, because 1 in 20 are not protected even with the best vaccines. So it's a 20-fold reduction, but it's not completely immune to it, even with the best vaccines. So the vaccines work by herd immunity, and that's why it's so important for every country, it's very important to eliminate it from the entire world, and not just from your country. Otherwise, anyone in your population can still get it, even if they're all vaccinated. Then a few will still get it, whenever it's get an imported case from another country. So it's very important to eliminate this from the entire world, for everyone. And it looks as if we're going to be able to do that in either 2021 or 2022, but we'll be over the worst of it from spring to summer in 2021. And meanwhile, we can reduce the death rate by significantly by early spring, because that's by vaccinating all of the most vulnerable. And the WHO say they've got enough for COVAX as well until the end of this year. And so all around the world, they're starting to vaccinate the most vulnerable step by step as they get to approve it. So that will immediately bring down the death rate, but not immediately. You've got the 1 month, you've got the 2 vaccinations, which it's by the 2nd month that you've developed the immunity at its strongest. And so you've got to do that. So you've got a month at least before you've got the full immunity. And then from the infection to deaths is another month or so. it's like it can be like 5 days to a week to be from infection to symptoms, then from symptoms to the another couple of weeks from symptoms to the worst effects, and then from there to deaths another week or a few weeks, and sometimes much longer. So vaccinating now will impact on the death rate about 1 month, about 2 months from now. So the vaccination that's going on now will reduce the death rate in starting, I'm saying this in the middle of December, so in the middle of January, then right away it'll, 7 days from now it'll have a slight effect, it'll have some effect on the infections, on how many people get the illness. Then by mid-January we again have quite a strong effect, but then talk about the actual deaths, then those would starting mid-January, starting towards the end of January, and really be towards the end of February before you can start seeing the death rate going down. So it's quite a long delay. So we've got the next few months, and we just shouldn't just be complacent about this. Say, oh, we've got the vaccine, it's all over. But the more you can bring it down and down and down, then the less work the vaccine has to do, and then you can get over it much faster. So if we do our physical distancing, mask wearing, hand hygiene, and then you get to January, February, we could bring it right down very, very fast if we did that properly. And isolation, quarantine, testing, did all that properly. It could be way, way down already. You can drop it tenfold in 25 days. That's what New Zealand did. So 100,000 a day becomes 10,000, becomes 1,000, comes 110, and then it's pretty much gone, just through doing the other measures properly. So you personally can do that. And so don't worry if you are someone, or if you're someone who's really terrified of needles, or you're someone who's immunocompromised. Of course you can't receive it because you're not yet approved, or maybe it's possible you never are if it turns out it doesn't work very well with immunocompromised people, and or you've got a severe allergic reaction to something in the vaccine, then you can still do everything else and be your part of the solution, and encourage other people to do everything. And if you're an anti-vaxxer, then again, remember that there will be people excluded for medical conditions, and in a way, if that's your belief system, and it's become almost like a belief system that isn't irrefutable or something, then again, that's the way you think. I mean, that's all right. The WHO strongly say it shouldn't be mandatory, and so hopefully many governments also, hopefully governments also go along with that. The United States, Biden says he's not going to make it mandatory, and so many of the people I talk to in the United States. So anyway, I'll stop now and upload this, and hope this helps.